Welcome to the Journos on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. We're here at the Hummel Studios and I'm delighted to say the Journos, we've got an all-star cast today. Gordon Parks is here, of course, on the...
Stephen, would you want to leave?
You've dropped your standards.
Yeah, Stephen McGowan and Barry Anderson are here looking and immediately have looked and said, an all-star cast, and Parksy gets the first mention. That's how things have moved on this season. But nevertheless, I'm delighted that you guys are with us for the Journos. With only 3 games left, there's going to be so much to talk about on the programme. Is this a moment in history as Hearts close in on the title? We'll get the predictions from these guys. It's been erratic for everybody all over the course of the season. Is Martin O'Neill correct in his assumption that Hearts can be regular contenders in the title race? Is Danny Rohl heading for the exit in the summer? One of those questions we'll be discussing. And is it going to be the mother of all seasons for Arsenal at that Champions League final and potentially winning the English Premier League? So with that in mind, our question on the quiz from Elite Joinery and Fire Protection: how many English teams have won the Champions League? Do you want to have a wee go at that one, Barry?
No. English teams have won the Champions League. Are we talking Champions League or European Cup as well?
European Cup as well. How many teams? Just give us a figure.
Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United.
No, don't count them. Just give us a figure quickly.
7.
7. Okay. We'll give you the answer at the end. Everybody going 7. So we'll give you the answer at the end of the programme. As you can see right now, there's a stare because they're all going through every team in their head to see if they've nailed it. Well, listen, I've got to go to you first, Barry, because quite simply, what we witnessed over the weekend sitting at Tynecastle was quite incredible. This looks as if it's the juggernaut heading towards the ultimate finish.
It does look like the real deal at the moment, you'd have to say. 3 games to go, Hearts 3 points clear. And the way they took care of Rangers on Monday after an auspicious first half, you'd have to say, showed that they deserve to be there. They deserve to be those 3 points clear. The atmosphere was phenomenal. I mean, I don't think Tynecastle's been so loud so many times over the years that I can recall, but I can't recall as loud as that. Struggling to hear what the guy sitting next to me was saying. Just the mass hysteria that's gripped the whole place is something to behold right now. And you know, they want to try and obviously ride the wave right to the end, and they look like they have the momentum, not just the players, but the fans behind them, the board, the management team, the coaching staff, the general unity that they've got there is, as I say, it's something to witness. Yeah,
flags are out, they're rolling out. Your man Colin Chisholm to sing the Hearts song non-stop, and every now and then he'll look to the opposition fans as well. Brave man the other day, they looked to the opposition fans and started giving it that, and I thought to myself, here come the legions over the hill. I mean, next minute everybody will be getting their faces painted. They're doing the right thing, Stephen, I think.
As a club?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they can't hide from it any longer. You know, I mean, we spoke to Hearts people for long enough, right up until maybe the end of January, and it was all very much, well, if, and they were scared of being rash in any statements, whereas I think now Dermot McInnes more or less says that, doesn't he? He says that, we are where we are, it is what it is. They are on the verge of being champions of Scotland for the first time since 1960. If they are, it will be deserved. People will talk about wobbles of Celtic and Rangers. Doesn't matter. The team that wins the league after 38 games deserves to be champions. Now, they're not there yet. You can't emphasise that strongly enough. I remember, and you hate to hark back to this, but I'm old enough to remember, you'll be old enough to remember, 1986. I remember a game, Hearts went to Dundee United. Remember, they won 3-0. Robbo pinged one in the top corner. And that night you thought, watch the sports scene, yeah, Hearts are going to do it. And there's still scope for slip-ups because, you're going to Fir Park at the weekend. I mean, going to play Motherwell away now, as Celtic will find in a week or so, it's a bit like, compared it to sailing the Waverley through the Straits of Hormuz. You don't want to do it. It doesn't seem particularly good course of action to go there, but they have to deal with it. And if they deal with that game, then Falkirk at home can be a big one. Yeah,
I mean, listen, the thing about it is, what you've got to say is, quite simply time and again, you know, there was moments where you thought, they're maybe not at it, they're maybe going to let it slip, and then they've bounced back after a defeat or a draw. Now you're in a situation, you know, Claudio Braga came into the press conference afterwards and says, look, you know, we've just got to keep thinking about this game. Yes, we know it's at stake. Yes, we know. Literally, they could all become legends. I mean, this is historic for them.
I think we were still in Albion at the start of the season for a League Cup game. And I think I said to you, look, man for man, recruitment-wise, they look, and I'll use Rangers, man for man, they look stronger, they've formed themselves into a better team. But man for man, they are all stepping up at the same time. And even as early as the Still and Albion game, you saw something forming, didn't you?
You did.
Who could have... The glass ceiling's been shattered.
Did you predict Hearts would be champions in July? Perhaps is this?
He said they looked like a team that were potentially going to do something. I think something was the word you used.
We've been through in Edinburgh at many press conferences and we've asked the question, Lewis Stevenson's, whoever, and we've always asked, why can't Hibs, why can't Hearts go, make it mount something, do something. So regardless of what happens, that glass ceiling has forever been shattered, at least for the next bit, and thank God for that.
I think that's an interesting point, Gordon. I mean, I've been thinking about this quite a bit in recent days, which is that understandably, for 20 or 30 years, teams like Hibs and Aberdeen, and yes, Hearts have been hiding behind this culture of hopelessness, haven't they? This feeling that we can't compete. We're playing for the best of the rest, we're playing for third. And yeah, there are mitigating circumstances where you look at the mess Rangers and Celtic have made of things, but Hearts are at the start of the curve and are not going to stop there. And you look at what they've done in terms of like innovative recruitment, in terms of the data analytics, in terms of reinventing the rules of acquiring players. You think, well, where are the excuses for the others now? They're disappearing before our eyes. I actually think Hibs have recruited better recently. I think they've been doing quite well recruitment-wise. Aberdeen, not so much. So Hearts are throwing down the gauntlet to the rest and saying, hang on, no more excuses. You know, stop this kind of like this woe is me type approach. There should be other teams now saying, okay, let's step up to the plate.
It was almost like taboo. It got to the stage.
Yep.
And that's demeaning for the league. It's demeaning for the clubs themselves of that size. It's demeaning for the season ticket holders that go and buy their ticket at the start of the season. So there's a new normal.
Well, here's something I'm going to throw in to totally go against the grain here, because I don't believe, and I'm going to contest what Martin O'Neill said, I don't believe there's a new normal. Because quite simply, I think Hearts have to be celebrated. I think at the end of the season, if they win the league, then everybody should concentrate on what they achieved, what they did, how Derek McInnes achieved it, the games that he changed, the squad that he used. I think all of that comes into the equation. But to suggest that there's suddenly a situation where Hearts will become regular contenders, I don't see it. And the reasons I'm going to give you for not seeing it are quite simply this. You had a Leicester City, which was a 5,000 to 1 run all the way through to the title. You had Spurs in that season who basically had the league within their grasp and blew it big time. But you have teams who have got a colossal amount of money. They've got 50 and 60,000 at the season tickets. They've got a massive thousands waiting in the background. They've got deals and sponsorship that dwarf what Hearts have, and they also have a situation where they've got so much in reserve to consistently say there's not going to be a changing of the guard.
They had all that at the start of this season.
No, they had all that at the start of this season, but again, what I'm saying is the stars have aligned while those two have completely imploded.
And what gives you the certainty or the confidence that they will get it right this time? Because hang on a wee second, because Rangers have won 3 major trophies in 14 years. Celtic had £70 million in the bank. They had those 50,000 season ticket holders, crowds of 60,000. And every major decision they've made in the last 12 to 18 months has been shambolic. So, yes, I understand your point. I get it. However, can you have any real confidence in Celtic and Rangers getting their act together quickly? They will eventually, of course they will. But Hearts just might have a window of opportunity for me here to go 2 or 3 years.
I don't think Hearts are going anywhere. And the reason for that, the main factor behind that is Tony Bloom. I look at what Tony Bloom's done previously, him and the relationship with Jamestown Analytics, Brighton, take them into the Premier League, established Premier League club now. Union Saint-Gilloise, Belgium, bottom of the second division when he got involved, now champions. Como in Italy, you only need to look at the Serie A table to see where they are. Partnered with Ipswich Town, took them with back-to-back promotions into the Premier League. So the methods that this guy's got, and we don't know exactly how it all works, but it's quite a secretive operation, but it does work, and there's a proven track record there. And I think, I'm not saying Hearts are going to be champions of Scotland every year for the next 10 years. There's a spin-off. But I do think that they will be up there challenging in and around Celtic.
There's a spin-off, and it's psychological, because players become conditioned now to go to Celtic Park and Ibrox and no longer have that kind of sense of foreboding. Yeah. It's more of a challenge, it's an anticipation, they believe they can do something. Regardless of Rangers and Celtic getting that together quickly, that's going to take a long time at Ibrox and Parkhead to establish that again. And that's going to be a problem for them, because players no longer fear it.
Well, listen, I love this type of programme because obviously I realise I'm in the minority, and I'm quite happy to be in the minority for it, because quite simply I only have to suggest to you, and again it's about opinions, I think Hearts deserve great credit, and I've tipped them to win the league. I've tipped them to win the league since January, but the point is this. You have a situation, and I don't think it takes a long time, partially because I remember, every journalist and their granny suggesting it was going to take 5 years for Celtic to displace Rangers in 2000. Yeah. It took them 3 games and 3 or 4 main signings that suddenly they turned over Rangers 6-2, and even after a 5-1 thumping at Ibrox, he won a treble. So it doesn't take a long time. What it does is quite simply, it will reinvigorate them to start to think smarter. And they will have, by thinking smarter, they will also have the ability with their board to say, listen, this mob are going to challenge the status quo. We're not going to give them the chance of 40 million.
I think that's the point, Peter, is that if you look at baseball and Billy Beans, Moneyball and what have you, they have innovative methods, and Jamestown are very carefully protecting those, aren't they? They don't want people to know what they're up to, for obvious reasons, because if everybody else knows what they're doing, they'll do the same. At the moment, Celtic don't have a head of recruitment. I think Rangers are getting their act together in that department under Dan Purdy and so on. Agents have spoken to say they seem smart guys, but they're still not quite there yet. So Hearts have this window of opportunity I'm referring to where, they've already got their new signings in the stand on Sunday there. They're bringing players in already. It's seamless. One goes out, one comes in. They have a system, they have a methodology. I don't know that you can necessarily sell. I don't think you can say that about Celtic at the minute. Rangers might be getting there. They're not quite there yet. So I think Hearts are at the beginning of the curve. I agree with Barry. It doesn't mean they're going to win the league every year. They probably shouldn't have won it this year. But the point is, can you guarantee that Celtic and Rangers won't mess things up monumentally? Not really.
No, but what you can guarantee is with a huge turnover and a huge amount of disposable income, they can still make mistakes and still buy quality, which is way above the level that Hearts have. You are asking, and I think he's to be applauded. I think his situation where he, will highlight, even if he keeps the grand plans in a secret compartment, he's got 7 or 8 that you say they were Tony Bloom signings at Hearts, and they're of a level where they were performing here, nobody spotted them, and they're able to do this at a certain level. But you are talking about Celtic and Rangers with a turnover and a profitability that can turn around and say, listen, we're going to buy 7 or 8 players that we are top drawer at a level above what Hearts are in the market for. And that's when you get to a situation where suddenly you're saying to yourself, oh, wait a minute, Derek McInnes really needs to actually, these guys all need to perform. I give you Caicedo. Caicedo moved from Brighton. He was an absolute gem of a player there. He had 2 seasons at Chelsea where people are looking and thinking, what does he do? He's not been able to do what he did at Brighton in that structure. But you have to hope that Hearts continually get these golden nuggets and they all perform and actually go on to another level. That's not guaranteed. With Celtic and Rangers, suddenly they can say, listen, we made a pig's ear of this, and we'll talk about it because there's going to be a clear out at both these clubs. These clubs are going to try and offload, take a hit on some of them who've been duds, and sell on some that are going to be profitable to them.
Celtic, so have Rangers. Have we not agreed that Rangers have spent the guts of 40 million in the squad already?
Yes.
So
and blown it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that goes back to my point. Celtic seem reluctant to spend that. They brought in 5 loan signings in January. Okay, Arajo is injured, but these players are not playing now. Oxlade-Chamberlain gets the matchday squad, the rest of them don't. So I don't see anything about the way Celtic and Rangers are run, certainly in the last 2 or 3 years, that gives me absolute certainty that those two clubs can turn this around and just raise the
Stephen,
bar.
there's a massive problem already waiting for Celtic and Rangers for that degree, because they've got no certainty.
Absolutely.
And that certainty is going to cause a kind of a waiting period, a recruitment. When's it going to start? Has it started? Who's going to do it? Rangers have brought in, who's going to go out that door and who's going to put their hand up to go? They're overloaded with players that haven't performed on big money. These are not simple things to solve. So Hearts don't have that problem. Aberdeen won't have that problem. Hibs don't have that. I think Celtic and Rangers at the moment are laden with problems.
Of course, I'm not disputing that point. I'm merely asking you to consider that, and it doesn't take time. It takes just quickly money to turn things over quickly, and the disposable income they have, and the ability to turn around and say, like a Manchester United, Manchester United threw money over a 10-year period into a fire and couldn't get anywhere near even. Jose Mourinho was the most successful of all the managers that they've had since Fergie. Won them a Europa League, got them to second in the table, and the football wasn't great for them. They wanted to play the Man United way, and they just kept firing money at it with manager after manager, and suddenly they're now they've got Champions League football with a guy who's actually managed to get a trick out of them, and they've beaten all the top 6 sides. So you can actually get to a situation where you throw money at it and then you say to yourself, we're just going to have to offload them. We're going to have to take the hit on some of them. Some of them, I mean, I look at Manchester United and Casemiro. At one point they were thinking he's a waste of space. Harry Maguire, get him out the door. He's a dud. He keeps giving the ball away. But suddenly you get somebody who perseveres with them, sticks them in, gets some people like Kobe Mainoo, who was another man that Ruben Amorim didn't want to know, persevered with him, put him in, got a bit of confidence about him. And I'm looking here, guys, and I've just put a crew together of people who will obviously be heading out the door. From the top 3, Leonard, Kabori, Kabangu, Wilson, Vargas, if he's not already gone, Schmeichel, Araujo, Arter, Nigrin, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Engels, Bernardo, Mvuka, Hatate, Adamu, Balakwisha, Iheanacho, Chavanchara, Maeda, Tavernier, Fernandez, Antman, Raskin, Moore.
What's the common denominator?
Well, what is the common denominator?
None of them are Scottish for a start, right? Also, you're going to have trouble asking some of those players to leave.
No, but some of them are all loan
Rangers
deals.
think they're getting
Parsi.
£40 million or £25 million for Fernandez, they can think again. I could go through a whole list of them. Engels, is that money going to come in? I don't think so. That's wishful thinking for a list. I don't see quality there. I don't see real demand.
No, I'm suggesting that these are loan deals, some of them who are going to be out the door, and the other ones, I think we've, over the course of this programme, over the season, I've looked and said to ourselves, well, let's ask Barry first of all, Leonard is a loan deal. Now, regardless of somebody saying shoulda, woulda, coulda in the press about Celtic have got him on the radar, that's what I call a column filler right now. But Leonard, Kabori, Kabangu, Wilson.
Kabori, I'd be surprised if he goes. I still think he's got another level to
Do you think so?
get to. Yep. I think he's more there for the longer term. Wilson, I would probably expect to be back for pre-season. The rest, I think, will go.
Yeah. Is there any more that I've forgotten
Cammy
about?
Devlin and Benny Biringame into that as well.
Yeah.
Contracts are up. No chance of no sign anyway that they're signing new ones. So add them into the mix. There will be a heavy overturn at Hearts in the summer, because the thing about Jamestown is sign cheap, sell when they're at peak value. So you're looking at Braga, Kizaridis. I'm not saying they're definitely going, but they are the two obvious ones that they will look to move on. It's no coincidence that Rogers Matos there sitting on the bench, a Ugandan international winger, plays on the left. You're not keeping him and Kizaridis happy for too much longer, so something has to give there. That's how Jamestown operate. The replacement's already there before. That's why Tom Reno was in the stand.
Yeah, they're okay. I mean, they're okay with that, Jamestown, aren't they? I mean, they've got legacy signings who I think they'd probably be quite happy to see. Yeah. No harm. I mean, some of them, their stats will show up quite well. They'll be okay, but they've got legacy signings they probably do want to replace and bring in their own men. So I think Hearts would be cool with that situation.
Yeah. So
the interesting thing that a lot of Hearts' success this season has been built around players that were already in the building. Guys like Halkett, Harry Milne. Devlin obviously had a great season. Shanklin's an obvious one.
McInnes brought Stuart Finlay because he knew what he could do.
Kingsley.
Kingsley's been excellent in the time he's played. So
It seems a bit brutal, that, doesn't it?
Shanklin's not a Jamestown Analytics.
no, absolutely.
Some of them shot quite well when when you do the stats. You think, yeah, they're okay anyway.
Yeah.
You know, so.
They brought in somebody, McInnes from League Two.
Yep.
You know, nobody would have said, oh, he's a Hearts player, but he is a Hearts player.
But here's a question for you then. How do the Hearts fans deal with that then? That brutality of their heroes getting dismantled?
I think a lot of them, the ones that have looked into the Jamestown thing and Bloom and the track record, I think they're comfortable with the fact that let's not get too attached to players because the better ones won't be here too long. And we just accept that, managers as well, when Derek McInnes decides he's leaving, there's somebody already, they've already got a list there of potential replacements. They've got a list of potential replacements for centre-backs, they've got a list of potential replacements for right-wingers, because they know that if the chance comes to get a deal and we can make big money, bang, we do it, because the replacement's already there.
Well, how does Derek McInnes feel about this? Because although at the start of the season when he was talking about it, he was actually he wasn't forthright in jumping on and saying this is Jamestown Analytics is the light, the way and the truth. Yeah. What he was saying is I'm going to embrace it, but I've got players here. I mean, I haven't heard Derek McInnes or anyone, unless you're going to correct me here, I haven't heard anyone turning around in that press room and saying, Derek, you're 3 games away from the title. You're lucky you've got Jamestown Analytics. It's all about, by the way, Derek, you've been brilliant. You've made significant changes at the right time. You've utilised that squad. You've got every trick out in the book. It's about you, the manager, your coaching staff, and the players. And as you pointed out, the majority who are here already.
Yeah, that is a fact. I mean, Jamestown's a supplement to what you've got, but you need the right manager, and Derek McInnes has 100% been the right manager for Hearts at the right time. You look at last season, finishing 7th. The Neil Critchley thing didn't work. He's followed on from Stephen Naismith. And so there's been a bit of managerial turnover there, and they needed stability. And one thing Derek McInnes will give you is stability. Having said that, when he came in, the priority was get up and around 3rd, 4th place after finishing 7th, get European football back again, and try and build from there. He's obviously exceeded expectations, and the reason he's exceeded expectations is he's managed that group really, really well. I don't think I've seen a more united Hearts dressing room than this one, which is a huge feather in his cap when you look at all the different nationalities you've got there, people from all different parts.
Hearts deserve credit actually, because I remember having a cup of tea with Andrew McKinley, and he was saying that if you think back to one of the first major moves Jamestown were involved in was Neil Critchley, was the appointment. And the data's great, but the data's better for signing players than it is for signing managers. For finding managers. So Hearts actually had to make a conscious decision. They wanted a Scottish manager, and Derek was the obvious contender. But actually, when it comes to Derek McInnes' success, that's not particularly on Jamestown. That's the people who were there and on him as well.
That's what I think.
McInnes was on the list as well.
Of course he would. Of course he would be. But
McInnes was ranked highly at that point as well.
Yeah. Listen, it's a great argument. It's a great pub argument. No, sorry, I haven't got a can of Kestrel here, and we can all have a right ding dong about it. But I just,
I'm sorry.
I think a lot.
But
Peter, I think a lot of people out there will be with you. You're saying you're in the minority. You might be in the minority of this sofa, but I think a lot of people out there will be feeling the same. Will be saying, yeah, you know what, the Hearts bubble burst. That would be fascinating to see.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting for a minute, and I don't want you to pick me up the wrong way. I'm not suggesting the Hearts bubble is going to burst. I am suggesting to you quite simply that Celtic and Rangers, not for a long period of time, because history tells you that doesn't happen. What they do is they've got a massive financial amount of money, and they will look and they will say to themselves, much the same as Real Madrid and Barcelona did when they realised that there was a huge, huge problem coming with the English Premier League strength. And they had to work out, as businessmen, as boards, these people are threatening our money pot. How do we counter it? So suddenly, from this, I give you Barcelona's integrity of having no sponsor on the shirt. Suddenly, with billions in debt, 1.5 billion, and facing the edge of a cliff, they went, Spotify will have you. Next minute, we'll sell the naming rights to the new stadium. All of a sudden, deals were being done right, left and centre. Real Madrid, Florentino Perez, same thing. Suddenly they started to get the new stadium, get more people in it, get higher prices, and start to look towards getting money from everywhere. Barcelona have sold the next 25 years of their television rights to actually bridge the gap. So what happens is you get Andrew Cavenaugh at Rangers, and that board look and say, we're not having this. We've got 50,000. We cannot have another mistake here. We've got to be in the mix. And you bet your bottom dollar, whether it's Dermot Desmond or anybody else who takes control, I think it'll be Dermot Desmond, he will look at this board and say, listen, we've blown it. Let's look at the way we blew it. Let's look at the way you rectify this. But the one thing that they can do by rectifying it is it makes it a hell of a lot easier if you've got millions to rectify it. And that's where I think they will turn around, the two of them, and say, fair play to you, great Derek McInnes, but we're not going to let you have it all your own way, son.
It requires a lot of expertise that I don't see. It's not visible to me. I don't see, in either the old firm, I don't see it. It's all, I mean, I just don't. So you might be right. I don't think you are. I think it'll take a long time. I think the damage that's been done. And I think the earthquake that's been erupting in Gorgie will have ramifications for a longer time than you think.
Yeah. I think also if you look at, let's take for example the Dermot Desmond statement on Brendan Rodgers, you don't see a great deal of contrition or humility sometimes from clubs like Celtic and Rangers.
Can you give me a billionaire who's got humility?
Exactly, but that's the point. That is the point. Does Dermot Desmond look at this situation and say, as you said there, yeah, we got it wrong, we're not going to, or does he say, no, we're still getting our fundamentals right, there's nothing wrong with the model and the structure, we carry on, we hone it, we improve it, and you make the same mistakes again?
Well, I give you this. That board, for likes or dislikes, as a financial board of banking men, accountants, and people who looked at a structure, what they were able to do, and I'm not a huge fan of Peter Lawwell, but I'm a fan of him as a business person, as an accountant, and I think Dermot Desmond as a businessman is unquestionably a man whose track record is there for all to see. But what they did very well, and I'm a huge fan of Brian Quinn. Brian Quinn came in from the Bank of England and absolutely was clued up on how that whole place should be structured. So what they did as a business was looked at it and said, okay, how do we maximise every area of revenue? The second part, which I think Peter Lawwell did very well, was he looked at the broad landscape of where the other clubs were over a period of time from 2003 onwards. What he did significantly in that period is he said this: Martin O'Neill, rein it in. The £6 million Lennons, Suttons, Hartsons, those days are gone at the moment. Rein it in. So what they did was then Gordon Strachan halved the budget and started to get the high earners out the door. At that point, they sacrificed a couple of titles to Rangers, and then suddenly they realised Rangers are imploding. They're creating a financial suicide that's non-sustainable. And then from 2012 onwards, Peter Lawwell and the rest of that Celtic board just went, we don't need to spend lots because nobody else can match us, because Aberdeen can't keep pace with us. Hearts and Hibs found themselves in the lower league. So automatically saying, they would sit around the board and go, how much is it going to take to win the league and outspend everybody here? And they did it.
Yeah, they spent what they needed to.
They spent what they needed to do. So where everybody was going, oh, there's another 9 in a row. The 9 in a row against teams that couldn't even match them. So this time around, the board meeting is different because that's what business people do. Business people work out where the problems are and say, okay, listen, we did make mistakes.
Hang on a minute. If you're talking figures then, how much does it cost to win a league in Scotland? What's the value? What does Celtic need to spend to guarantee it?
Well, I have to say, you Parksy, if you think I'm going to sit here and give you an exact figure, I'd need to be off my nut.
Is it 40 million because Rangers have proven it's not enough?
No, but
is it 50 million?
No, but what
It's not a figure. It's how well you spend the money.
That's what I'm saying. The expertise has to be in the building, right? Where is it?
Well,
is it coming in?
Let me tell you this: the permutations and the layers of suddenly readdressing the mistakes. And don't bet for a minute that Dermot Desmond, I mean, he might not have humility and he might have that arrogance about him and he might have that pig-headedness, but in the background as a businessman, he will look and say, I've made mistakes. He will then look to the board that he's got, sacrifice a few that he thinks are useless, bring them on, because that's what businessmen do. They've got no loyalty to people that they think have failed. So they'll just go, you're out, you're out, you're out, I'm bringing him in because he's going to do this. And the next part, which is going to be really interesting, Stephen, is The next part of this layer is, this is the budget to blow them out of the water again. This is the manager that we think is going to do it. And this is how much we're going to have to spend to make sure this doesn't happen this season. And by the way, you can get a manager who can do that.
Well,
you can get a manager.
Do they not need a recruitment expert as well?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
That's the biggest thing.
And that's why it's very difficult to predict. I mean, you know, you're saying they can do this, can do it. Yeah, but it goes back to Parsley's point, which is that you can't really say for certain what's going to happen at Celtic until you know who is in place, who the manager is, who the head of recruitment is, what structure they're going to bring. They are going to restructure the football department. They are going to change it this summer. I think they recognise, as you say, that they have been making mistakes. They're going to try and engage more with fans and so on. They're going to try to right some of the errors. But given the mistakes they've made over the last 18 months, if the same people are overseeing that, can you be sure they'll get it right? I'm not sure.
No, I don't think you can be sure or certain, but I think you've got a better chance when you can absolutely outspend a team by, maybe, am I being over the top, Barry, in suggesting that Celtic could outspend Hearts maybe 4-5 to 1?
Yeah, probably close to that, aye. Aye, that's fair.
So they're going to have what a chance to actually get, and it's
Not
not
that
a
financial.
it's
muscle,
not a,
there's no doubt
But,
about it.
but if you spend $5 million on Balak-Wisha and Hearts are spending what, and Claudio Braga was it 500,000 whatever? Well, yeah. I mean, you know, the money doesn't count for much.
No,
because Claudio Braga is a better player than Balak-Wisha, so you wasted $5 million on. So we'll give in circles a wee bit.
that we are going round in circles, but I would say this to you, and this is my own, and again, it's a brilliant argument, and it's about to be tested to the full in the summer. You stand a better chance, I think, at a 5 to 1 spend in a league which has only got 12 teams. Now, Chelsea can throw, oodles of cash at players non-stop, and they're not guaranteed it. There's no guarantee, because every team in the Premier League near enough can beat everybody, because they can all spend millions, because they've all got millions. You've got to a situation where Man United, if you looked at Man United's budget over the last 5 to 10 years of trying to replicate what Fergie did in season 2013, it's a colossal amount of money and debt. But they fired in there, but it wasn't guaranteeing anything, because the rest of them could spend millions. But the rest of them can't spend millions in the Scottish Premier League. These two can.
Theoretically, your point's spot on. Of course it is.
Yeah.
It's the practice problem. Practice is the problem, and that's what worries Rangers and Celtic fans, because
I agree.
it hasn't.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know if you've seen it today, and here's the other financial point on it. And again, I hope the commercial department at Hearts do this, because I'll tell you who did it really well, Falkirk. See, when they win the league, if they win the league, when they win the league, take whatever one you want out of that. But if they win the league, get the commemorative T-shirts, get the commemorative official top, get the away top with the logo on it, get the golden badge, get the star, do whatever you need to do. Just maximise that commercial department. Suddenly then start saying to yourself, you'll never believe it, but at the new St James's Centre, we've got the Hearts shop. Here's the van with the Hearts gear in it. Do whatever you have to do, because they could make a tidy sum. Now, I tell you right now, Celtic fans in disarray, totally upset with the board. This morning, a teaser video commemorating the Lisbon Lions win for this next season coming. The new kit has got the logo with the Lisbon Lions.
Yeah.
What is it? How many years is it now? Is this 60?
Yeah, next year will be, yeah.
So 60.
Yeah.
So 60. I've seen the video this morning going out on social media. How many people do you think are going to go out and buy that top? They will be absolutely steamrolling it out, and Adidas pay
Not
them
in the
another
back of a
bonus.
double they want.
Hey?
Not in the back of a double. When they win the double. When Celtic win the double, that'll be an appeasement of sorts. That'll give them buy them a wee bit of time.
No, what I'm saying is, you've got to look and say to yourself as a business, Jamestown Analytics is built very much on, okay, let's get the signings right. But Andrew McKinley and the rest of the board have to say, let's get the business right. And they have to do it. The reason why I mentioned Falkirk and Jamie Swinney deserves tremendous credit is because they had the commemorative. Then they had. I said to him at one of the Falkirk days, I suppose the Invincibles T-shirts coming out. He says, "Oh, they're flying."
Just make sure you don't start producing them before you've won the league, because if that gets out, that's loose lips sink ships.
Well, how many teams have actually produced the Champions League winners' T-shirts and they're in a box?
Well, it's funny actually, because I was doing features in '86 the other day there. I remember Davy Hay telling me that back in '86 he told the players that he'd seen Hearts champions commemorative T-shirts, and we'd all with John Robertson, and the guy said, "No, there were no such T-shirts." He I don't know whether Davy had seen something in some fan had hammed one up, but he used that as part of his team talk at Love Street. They're already celebrating winning the league, so you've got to be really careful in these situations.
The point I made about the merchandise was, from a Celtic they will buy, they're programmed to buy, they always do. Maybe they shouldn't. Maybe this should be the summer they go, no, show me something tangible.
Well, listen, do you want me to tell you something? Most of the Celtic fans stopped buying a lot of gear, Stephen.
Yeah.
They absolutely were.
Well, your list is interesting, because I think it's probably fall short of what they would ideally. I think if you look at the list...
I haven't read the list. I'll read it out and you can then correct it.
No, I'm not correct. I think there'll be about 18.
I don't mean correct. I mean add to it. So I'll read them out. Schmeichel, Arahu, Arter, Nigrin, Chamberlain, Engels, Bernardo, Mvuka, Hatate, Adamu, Balikwisha, Iheanacho, Chavanchara, Maeda. Who else?
Hatate.
Is that it?
Yeah,
Is he in it? Oh, is he in it? Right.
Yep.
$1 million question as a captain.
Yeah.
I mean, is it out of the question that Brendan Rodgers will want to come and take Callum McGregor to Saudi Arabia? And given what Callum McGregor said there a week there about the club, he wants the club to I don't know, he said, I'm paraphrasing when I say match his ambitions.
Yeah.
But that felt like a bit of a warning shot across the bow, that Callum McGregor expects things to get better. And you do wonder, given that the Celtic didn't particularly take well to Brendan Rodgers saying that stuff, I wonder how they'll feel about Callum McGregor saying it.
Yeah, I'll just ask, this is a Scripples question, Barry, but obviously you're working for the Evening News, but if the Saudi Arabian Times matches your ambitions of 10 million...
You think I could survive in the temperatures?
Hello, Barry, can you join us by video call? He's off.
Don't go.
I couldn't afford the sun cream.
Yeah, but I mean, do you know what I mean? I mean, Callum McGregor matches ambitions, Saudi Arabia. Of course, this is 50 million. Thank you and good night.
You've answered your own question. He'd be a fool not to go. He's done his time. He's a legend. He's got his medals in the folklore. Going in a final and go to a different country, sample something different. He's done his time.
Yeah, listen, it's as Barry and I were talking about before the show started, which is a Craig Gordon scenario. Mother of God, you've served your time, you've been there. Your only problem is growing old, and that's it for Craig Gordon as well. I mean, he will sit there. Will he get a medal? I think he might if they win it.
I think he'll get a medal. Yeah, but I think the big thing for him now is trying to make sure he's in that World Cup squad for Scotland and get himself fit first and foremost. And
I think he'll be in that anyway, to be honest with you.
Do you think so?
Oh yeah.
At the sacrifice of who?
Well, who are you sacrificing with the best player in the world in terms of
Liam Kelly, I would
goalkeepers?
think.
Yeah. I mean,
keepers
and Liam Kelly's not playing either. I think. Remember, I think there's a kind of quiet acceptance that Craig Gordon will be in that squad even if he's not playing, because he has earned it.
Gordon, Angus Gunn,
Scott Bain.
I
think they're your three goalies.
You having that?
Absolutely.
I'm just checking, see if you're in an argumentative mood.
No, I'm just get him on your list.
Yeah. I love the way Parsley trying to blow me out of the water says, and I'll need the exact figure financially what it's going to take to do this. I'd love to have been able to.
Point.
Yeah.
Start finance. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Give us a figure.
Yeah.
What does it cost to win the Premier?
I'm not getting involved in it. Listen, we've all had a drink, right?
Exactly. We've all had a can of Kestrel. I always go back to Gordon Strachan's line, which is just a fabulous one.
Dog.
Yeah, about the people who call into phone-ins, sitting drinking a can of Kestrel lager, telling the manager he's a dud. But with Rangers, it's a slightly different conundrum, isn't it?
I think the other night was a curtain falling in Danny Rohl.
You think so?
I do, yeah. Even if it doesn't happen immediately, I think he's got the head of dead man walking at the minute. Because effectively the faith of the fans is gone now. Look, this season of all seasons, this could turn around with an Old Firm win on Saturday, but do we really think Rangers can win 3 games? Do we really think Hearts are going to lose all of theirs? Probably not. So, well, it's still mathematically not impossible. I think Rangers are pretty much gone in the title. And I think there's just too many question marks now in the fans' minds over Rohl. I mean, I think there was a lot of gratitude that he came in and steadied the ship, that he made them better. He inherited a mess with 13 points behind. He narrowed the gap. But it's back to 7 again now. There's a big question over their record in big games. There's a big question over his starting 11 too often in recent weeks. And there's this big question as well as when Derek McInnes pulls a tactical stroke like he did at half-time and puts another man in midfield, goes to 3-5-2, how does Danny Rohl react? Well, he didn't react terribly well. So I think I just detected a difference in the Rangers fans and their mentality the other night, their attitude towards Rohl, and just this feeling that, you know what, the decision now is, do you do it now or do you wait and finish up in that old rinse and repeat scenario where autumn comes and you know it's here because the leaves are falling from the trees and there's another manager?
My one concern, and it's a big concern, it's a red flag, the recruitment he did, that he's identified, haven't hit the head. I mean, honestly.
Shermiti is not his.
No, Olsen is his. Romans is the only one that's come in and done decent, but only decent. Has he got fangs that he can bear, that he can go and... Managers of a certain calibre need to have a certain kind of barbarism when it matters to get players to respond, and he hasn't managed to do that.
Has he got enough?
Doesn't seem to have the personality to do that.
Has he got enough strength and personality to go to the board and say, "Listen, I need more money"?
He seems very placid to me. He seems too placid and too calm. And in the heat of the fire, I don't see enough passion within him.
Well, Andrew Cavanagh's already committed more money, hasn't he? You know, he made that announcement. Was it 60 million? Was it he said? Or you know, and they are going to invest more money. The question he's got to ask himself is, does he invest it in this coach, this manager? Because he's been ruthless already in terms of disposing of the technical director and the chief executive, Farewell and Stewart. He's shown he has no compunction over doing that. And when you look at this scenario now, not only have Rangers spent the guts of 40 million in their squad, if or when they don't win this league, that's another 40 million going down the pan because they had a glorious opportunity to go straight into the group phase of the Champions League.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say, and you'll be able to give us the exact financial figure on this, is what's the figure on the share issue?
There's a great question. Stephen's your man for that.
No, but do you know what? I know, I had to do that, by the way. Listen, do you think I'm going to let him punch me without me leathering him back? The thing is, Barry, I know I'm being facetious with you, but the point is, quite simply, how much did they get from the share issue? Yeah. Nobody will know that. Nobody will get that figure. Absolutely. And the point here for Andrew Cavenaugh is, does he look at it and say, well, we did have, as Stephen highlighted, and rightly so, we did have a chance. So does he look at it in the cold light of day as a businessman saying, listen, I've given this boy 40 million. Now, does he look and say financially he's failed? Or does he look and say, wait a minute, this boy came in at a time when we were on our knees after a completely failed manager and gave us hope. Now, my point here is, and I've got a bit of sympathy for Danny Rohl, is, wait a minute, you weren't even thinking of being in the title race. You were actually thinking of going through a transitional season, painful as it is. This guy's giving you hope. So why would you want to sack him? Give him a summer, a transfer window in the summer to completely make it his side.
Hang on, before Barry answers this, I've watched Rangers in the flesh for about 2 months now. They've been awful. They may have been picking up results, but they've been awful. And I think the board will look at that and they won't. It doesn't camouflage. The points they've pulled in doesn't camouflage how poor they've been. I think they'll keep him because he can't keep turning over. I think they will for that. I don't think he's quite dead man walking yet. But they've been awful. And I think the fans know that as well. I don't think there was any kind of momentum and belief amongst the support because they were watching it the same as I was.
Well, that's my point, and this is what I'm throwing out to you guys, is quite simply, does he look at it as a ruthless businessman and say, I gave you 40 million, you've failed? Or does he look and say, realistically, by the way, we've got a guy, we knew what he was going to do, he was going to try and get us on an upward curve. Whether they're awful or not, it's an old Kenny Dalglish adage here, which is quite simply, the results don't say, by the way, we won the game 2-1, we were ranked rotten. It says, you won the game 2-1, you got your 3 points.
And that's an argument for Danny Rohl. It's a stick and twist situation, I think, here for Rangers, because you're right. There is a valid argument that, you know, he's been given all this money and he's potentially going to finish third in the league. That's not good enough by Rangers standards, and a lot of fans are of that view, and I would accept that. The other side of it is he came in at a time when Rangers were absolutely nowhere, a squad that's very average, and that's putting it kindly by the standards of what Rangers would expect. And he's got them up there. It's a minor miracle that he's got them up there challenging. So, and I know they've been playing poorly, partly I agree with you.
I don't agree with the minor miracle stuff. I think
it is, because the squad has been poor, and I agree his January signings weren't great and they should have been a lot better.
It would have been difficult to sustain just how poor they were under Russell Wright. There was going to be a reaction, because players, human nature in dressing rooms, players have to get their act together at some point, because they're playing for themselves. They've done that. It's a team that plays for themselves. This minor miracle that he's achieved, this great charge up to get their noses into the fight, that doesn't wash for me. By the way, it shouldn't wash for Rangers fans either.
I totally get the argument that he needs more time, he deserves more time because of what he's done. I get it, I understand it. I just felt that the other night, after that game, patience just seemed to snap. Now look, it's been up and down like that with Danny Rohl many times this season. It could all change if he pulls off some kind of miracle in the final games, but it would be a miracle. I just felt that you saw this real sea change in the attitude of supporters towards him. And I think when that happens, it becomes really difficult to turn off a negative dripping tap.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm glad you pointed this out, because it's the erratic nature of it, you know, and by the way, we've all been guilty of this knee-jerk assessment of things, because when the boy Chermiti scores an overhead kick against Celtic, and then suddenly he gets a hat-trick against Hearts, suddenly people are phoning Kevin and going, Kevin Thelwell, you were right, you were a visionary. Well, 3 weeks later, he can't hit a barn door again.
That's the environment we're in, though, isn't it?
It is that environment, and I am asking you at this point to bear in mind what Barry said, bear in mind the point I'm highlighting to you is, did you seriously think, when Russell Martin was sacked, that when they brought in Danny Rohl, they were going to suddenly be back in the title race? Did you see them as title contenders?
I don't think we should be playing trumpets for...
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you the question.
Did I think,
they were ranked rotten.
I didn't think they could sustain as bad as they would actually be. There would be an upturn, and there was. Chermiti's a great example. Anybody that watches him sees this guy's not got any natural instincts as a striker. Doesn't protect the ball properly. He has wee hot moments, but he's fundamentally flawed.
You're doing a classic Martin O'Neill press conference here. When you don't want to answer the question.
I will answer the question. It wasn't an unexpected shock, because they had to show something, because the fans demanded a wee bit better, and they were a wee bit better.
No, but it doesn't.
And ultimately,
by the way, I'll go back to what I said.
The question is,
the place out. They've been thinking.
The question is, has he improved a team that was?
I've always said this. He brought a bit of structure and stability to the team. He managed to get a tune out of Fernandes. It looked a wee bit more solid. That's it.
Has he improved the team? Yes.
Yes.
Has he won any trophies? No. And obviously that's how the season's going to end. And ultimately, if you're the manager of Rangers, that's how you're judged.
And if you ask any Rangers fans what you just asked me there, they would say probably exactly the same.
No, I accept that. But my point here is, and it goes back to what I said to Barry, does the board look and say, are they going to be... There's three elements to it. Are they going to react to fans? And I agree with you, because see, when fans actually lose faith in you, you're gone. Yeah. So I agree with that point. I think that's the best point that you make. But is it a fans' revolution here, or is it an Andrew Cavenaugh business? You've squandered 40 million, or is it suddenly from where we were to your remit, you've suddenly given us hope?
I think Andrew Cavanagh's already answered that question. I think he answered it when he sacked Patrick Stewart and he sacked Kevin Thelwell.
Yeah.
I mean, that was an overwhelming negative fan reaction to those two executives, and they paid for it with their jobs. I think he's already shown he's willing to be ruthless. If he thinks it needs to be done, he will pull the trigger. And as I say, I think the question now is whether he decides. I think sticker twist was a perfect phrase. Do they do it now, or do they wait and risk a bad start to the season and end up back in that November?
See what you're saying about the curtain kind of fell a wee bit. He's accountable and owns that capitulation in the second half, because that's his team, and that's the fibre. It's the mental strength that they don't have. He's not getting it from them, and that's what worries me.
Perfect example of that was Craig Halkett against Chermiti. Craig Halkett absolutely dominated them from first minute to last. Yeah. And you looked at, there's an 8 million striker against a centre half Hearts got for free from Livingston, and it was night and day for me. Just the way Halkett went about his business summed up a lot of the game.
I mean, the other aspect
A lot of the second half, I should say.
A lot of the press conferences after that game were quite simply saying he made the changes too late, whereas Derek McInnes made the changes immediately to get what he needed out of it. I mean, I go back to having a manager who can make changes quickly, doesn't suffer fools gladly, and certainly doesn't suffer egos. When Motherwell came to early on in the season, when Motherwell, and I sat in Tynecastle with yourself, Barry, Motherwell came in, they were 3-0 up, and it could have been 6. And quite simply, Derek McInnes looked and went, we're getting battered here. Yeah. So now I'm going to change it. I'm going to bring on Braga. I'm going to bring on some. He made 2 changes. Braga was one of them. But he brought them on and said, right, this is the way you're going to line up to stop what they're doing to us. And that if we get a goal, we'll get back in it. And suddenly they got a 3-3. And he made one change in that game on, was it Sunday, Saturday? Can't remember where I am now. Sunday? Monday. Yeah, holiday Monday. He made one change in that game that changed the axis of it, and it was Spittle comes on, and suddenly they're not dominating the midfield anymore.
He's been doing it all season, Peter. I can go back to even second game of the season, Hearts are away at Dundee United, and I'd gone down to the toilet at half-time, and I've come back up the stairs and I see Michael Steinwender and Cavenaugh jogging down the track with Alan Archibald. They've been called in for half-time. In the first half, Hearts are poor. Dundee United getting in behind all the time. Hearts playing 3-5-2. Dundee United getting in behind Alan Forrest at right wing back constantly. And you're thinking this needs to change or the game's going to get away from them. And he brings on Steinwender. Cavenaugh goes 4-4-2 and they win 3-2.
Barry, you can have all the data and all the analysis in the world, but if you're a manager that doesn't make your players accountable, Derek McInnes has got the best of both worlds. He has got the wrath of Cannon. Players going to the dressing room after a game not delivering for him, know it. Do those Rangers players know it? I don't think so.
No, they didn't look like they knew it on Monday because they were mentally weak in that second half on Monday.
I did sense from the fans and the players at the end of it, they thought, it's gone. I mean, there isn't. Sometimes you can get an act of defiance, but they were all gone.
Entirely, yeah. I mean, you reach a point where the narrative becomes relentlessly negative.
Yeah.
Where's Rangers' motivation on Sunday then? Because they still, clearly they'd rather Hearts won the league than Celtic. They also have a Champions League space to try and fight for.
What are you trying to drive at? What are you driving at?
That's what I mean. So this game, how far are Rangers going to take this on Sunday?
I'll tell you.
What's they got to play for?
I'll tell you. It's a battle at Stirling Bridge, where basically the English outnumber the Scots, and they say we're going to fight till the death, and that's exactly Rangers' attitude to it. We're going to stop Celtic, and
that's my point.
And I think that's what they are going to do. If there is a modicum of a last bit of energy,
Peter, the
to
message
stop Celtic, that's it.
The message is loud and clear. This is a Rangers team that don't have exactly what you've just prescribed. They don't have it within themselves.
You don't see them beating Celtic or drawing.
I don't think they have a collective will to go and do what you're just saying to do, to go and match up and compete. I've watched them week in, week out. I don't even know their system.
You know what I think?
They're not getting Mikey Muir coming off the bench or driving at players. I don't see what he's trying to do.
I think what all 3 teams have in common, actually, and particularly Rangers, is they really struggled to play for 90 minutes.
Yes.
When was the last time you saw, and quite harsh this, when was the last time you saw any of these 3 teams dominate a game for 90 minutes and win it comfortably?
In a strange sort of way, the best team that I've watched this season, Motherwell, haven't dominated games for 90 minutes either, because they do have those lulls where suddenly it can all come tumbling down. But on your knee-jerk reaction and the point you're making, if there isn't fight in the game against Celtic on Sunday, if there is not that battling quality, if they don't get something out of that game against Celtic and they lose, your point comes into effect big time, which is the fans will not tolerate a defeat to Celtic and the league gone. It compounds the misery, Stephen.
But Celtic have not beaten Rangers in 90 minutes, God knows how long now, is it 18 months or whatever it was, 2 seasons? I mean, there's no guarantee at all for Celtic in terms of home advantage against Rangers, especially if Rangers feel that they really do need to turn up and have the bit between their teeth. So they've got every motivation in the world to go there, and I think Celtic will definitely win that game. No, I don't. No.
Who's going to win it?
I don't think a draw is out of the question in that one.
Yeah.
And that will help Hearts, obviously, if that's the case. Assuming, if that's the case, and Hearts don't necessarily need to beat Motherwell. As I say, that Falkirk game next midweek will really help them. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Celtic Rangers draw again.
Yeah, Hearts at Fir Park.
Tough.
That turns the heat up on those two.
If they win, absolutely, yeah, and that's the aim, naturally. But again, a draw there wouldn't surprise me because it's so tough to go to Fir Park and win, as everybody's found out. The only thing is Motherwell don't have quite as much to play for now. That might play into Hearts' hands. And Hearts have got a lot of momentum, and clearly a lot of confidence, although they haven't been scintillating themselves in recent weeks, they would tell you that. But confidence is everything. Momentum's everything at this point in the season.
Still have to absolutely seal fourth, don't they? I mean, they're 6 points clear of Hibs. They're probably going to be okay, but still not quite there yet as European repercussions. And it's been said so often about Motherwell, they're going to be the kingmakers.
Yeah, but don't tell Jens that. But Jens has got an intensity about him and a demand that he places in players. And again, I'm sure he's got a bit of a kind of volatile quality as well that players need. They do. They need to hear calm voices, loud voices. And he's definitely got that. And I think that's why they will turn up.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I think he's...
I also think that if Hearts get the result, Hearts have got to make sure that they're not going to Celtic Park needing to win that game. That's it, I think.
You think Celtic are still going to win the league?
I do.
So there's going to be a slip-up somewhere for you?
I think it will be on Saturday, and I think, sadly, and I would love to see Hearts win it, but I think it's going to be a bridge. I think the emotion of Monday was terrific. You can't reach that high again, and I just think Motherwell are a fantastic team at home, and I think the manager's got a point to prove. He knows that if Motherwell had been more consistent and not turned those draws into wins, they would be the story of the season, and I think you're going to find that on Saturday.
But Motherwell are a great team at home.
They are.
Celtic go down in their second last game.
I know that, but I just think Celtic will win the last 3 games.
I'm staying with Hearts. I think Hearts will win the league. What about you?
Go with Hearts, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be straightforward, but I think Hearts will do it.
Do you think and if we were realistic about it and the knee-jerk reaction on it, do you think on Sunday the opening montage from Sky Sports should be it's the crap derby, two mediocre teams going head-to-head?
An interesting sales pitch, that, I have to say. Subscribe to Sky Sports to watch the crap derby.
Yeah.
We've had 3 crap derbies.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I'm looking at it on Sunday and I'm thinking to myself, geez, the two of them have been ranked rotten. I mean, they've just been terrible to watch. I mean, the Hibs game was just indicative of what Celtic are all about. Just murder to watch. And Rangers is partly, for his sins this season, Stephen, I've sent him to near enough every Rangers game at Ibrox, and it's been painful.
Purgatory.
Yeah, but the two of them have been poor, and I haven't seen anything that suggests. Actually, I know it sounds absolutely ridiculous just before we finish to suggest it, Barry, but I thought that was the best I've seen Rangers play in the first half.
They were excellent. They had Hearts. They had control of Hearts. Raskin was just running about doing whatever he wanted in that midfield, and Hearts had a 2v3 that they couldn't deal with. But again, the change with Spittle coming on, a proper midfield player in that number 10 role, but Ingame and Leonard behind him, that made all the difference. But yeah, I mean, Rangers, I think that's been Rangers' problem this season. They've done it in fits and starts, and they just haven't put enough complete 90-minute performances together.
Can I also say, I thought, and it's not just not that goal, no harm to Claudio Braga, who's been a revelation, but I think Lon Shanklin was robbed of the Player of the Year award. I think Lon Shanklin, Scotland's Player of the Year, even with that injury period.
Yeah.
Is that harsh?
No, I think that's fair enough.
It's an opinion on it. I must admit, I thought I was surprised Mikey Moore got young player, because I thought Barney Stewart's story was just so good over the course of 2 different leagues.
I picked a bad time to miss a hat full of chances, didn't he, in that game at the weekend?
Honestly, I think the votes, to be fair, the votes were in, but then
I know.
He could have actually had a double hat-trick in that game for Falkirk. But listen, these things are voted for by players and managers, so we can't argue too much about it. So on that basis, Barry, you've said, Hearts for the title, so are they going to Fir Park and winning on Saturday?
Aye, probably just.
You're going to have to say that.
Convinced, are you? Yeah. Convinced? Be adamant about it.
Look at recent
How can you be adamant? How can you be adamant about it?
How can you force him into your opinion?
Because we're asked to give an opinion, right? Do you believe in your heart that they're going to go there and win?
I think it'll
watch
be very
them every
tight,
single
but
week.
I think they can do it because they've done it for so many different weeks. Without playing well, they've been winning games.
You would be as well saying, can you give me 6 winning lottery numbers on Saturday? It's guesswork.
That's true, right?
It's guesswork.
It's true, of course it is. But your experience of you're in the last legs of a season here, right? Have they got enough?
To get over the line and win the title. Aye.
You said that. By the way, I know, Stephen, you've questioned me on a number of occasions on why I signed him. But eventually what happens... eventually what happens is the...
So why we signed you?
Eventually what
I
happens...
get a lift back to Glasgow.
That's it, yeah.
Eventually,
presume.
go and watch One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest again. This is Jack Nicholson.
More Nurse Ratchet.
This is just...
Have a bit
it's
of
classic.
That's all I'm saying.
He's giving you conviction. He said Hearts are going to win the league.
Delay, right? I wasn't convinced. He's
You're allowed to pause before an answer.
Exactly.
No belief. You don't believe it yourself. And that's the problem.
It's a great noise up. Listen, on that point, and again, we're talking about Bottle. As I finish this programme, it could be the mother of all seasons for Arsenal. Are they going? Are they going to win the Champions League and the Premier League? And Davy Moyes has done them a big turn.
He has, but I watched Everton 3-1 up. You see Man City coming back and Doku popping one in the top corner. I'm just so reluctant to write Manchester City off. You know? I just always think they'll pull something out of the bag if they absolutely have to. And Arsenal, we were like Hearts, but far more recent for Arsenal, and these players have got the weight of history on their shoulders, and it's...
What a board for sticking by him. Because about 5 weeks ago, we were all saying, do you sack him?
Yeah, no, I agree with what Stephen's saying. There's just that little bit of doubt in your mind when it comes to Arsenal. I think that's always there. And for that reason, you can't write off Man City. But yeah, I mean, the board, I like to see that. I like to see a board that will actually stick by a manager. Going back to the Danny Rohl argument, if you like, you need stability in a club. Doesn't matter what club it is, what level, you need stability. You need a manager who's given time to build his own squad, shape it as he wants. And I don't think you do that in whatever it's been, 8 months. So
I think the injection of what happened getting to a Champions League final will be decisive.
Yeah.
I think if they'd lost that game, air goes out a wee bit, difficult to pick yourself back up, but I think that's mean they're driving now, they're driving properly, and I think it was ridiculous to talk about a manager getting sacked, top of the Premiership, Premier League, and going to a Champions League semi-final. It was nonsense.
Seeing the timing thing, and it's gone back a wee bit, and it's interesting to say you need to give time, and so many folk with Rangers, for example, want Steven Gerrard back. If you think Steven Gerrard was given that time, no one else has been given since.
Yeah.
And he's perceived as and he rightly perceived as a successful Rangers manager because he won the league. But it was only after year 3. So it just adds a different perspective to this, where you should be giving him time, where you should be pulling the trigger when we're at the top. We just live in a kind of knee-jerk.
it never happens now, but I always think a manager needs the best part of 3 years.
I agree with you.
To get the squad the way he wants it and show what he's properly capable of.
I could dedicate a whole programme to the Steven Gerrard fixation with the Rangers supporters. And I'll be fair to him and say, maybe in year 4, when he wanted them to match his ambition, they couldn't do it. That's why he decided Amovsky. But he also, for me, elsewhere was found out to be a failed manager. And the circumstances, again, prevailed in his favour at Rangers at that time with Celtic imploding. But listen, there are pros for him and there are things that go against him. But it's one of those ones you could dedicate a programme to. I'm glad you brought it up. But it is, sometimes if you get with a manager and stick with him, you reap the rewards. We're gone for Hearts, you've gone for Celtic. We're about to find out what a weekend it's going to be. I've thoroughly enjoyed your guys' company, certainly the arguments and the debate on it all. And you can bet your bottom dollar I'll be getting you all back here next year once all the signings have been made in August, because this boy here's going to get leathered.
Belief, Barry, that's all I'm asking.
Yeah, Barry, I'll tell you one thing, believe you'll be back, right? Because I'm going to give you your moment. The quiz, the answer, how many teams?
I thought 7.
6.
Oh.
Remember, they've won, some of them have won it 2 or 3 times. So,
All right, so it wasn't just individual teams, it was how many triumphs in terms of how many years?
how many teams?
Right.
How many teams is 6? So
Nottingham
you've got
Forest.
Manchester United, you've got Liverpool, you've got Nottingham Forest,
Aston Villa.
you've got Aston Villa, you've got Chelsea, and you've got Man City. There's your 6. So that's the answer to the Elite Joinery and Fire Protection quiz. Thank you to the guys for sponsoring us. And over and above that, I will tell you, if you go to our YouTube channel right now, right on the home page, our competition with Lucky Tiger is quite simply to die for, because it is 2 tickets to the game against Haiti, 2 tickets to the game against Morocco, then 2 tickets to Brazil, 14 nights accommodation, flights included, and £1,000 spending money. I don't know what more we can offer you for it. It's a great prize draw, and the 24th of May we will conduct the draw on Lucky Tiger's channel. And there's going to be one person who's going to be jumping for joy all the way to America. What a competition.
6 people.
No. 2 people.
2 people, 3 sets. 6 people. Your figures have been all out. I thought there was 3.
No.
3 sets of tickets.
No, there's 2 tickets to go to Haiti, 2 tickets to go to Morocco, 2 tickets to go to Brazil. Hey, wait a minute. If there were 6 tickets, I'd be taking everybody here and we'd all be inviting our
He
families.
does to come back in a few months. He's already done this.
I know, he's a one-man.
Listen, he's asking me for the financial breakdown of spending. He can't even work out the bloody competition.
He's a one-man argument machine, isn't he? Really is.
Yes, absolutely. Listen, don't worry about pausing between questions, Barry. You're fine. Thank you to Parsley. Thank you to Barry. And thank you to Stephen. I hope you enjoyed the programme. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. Come and join the PLZ family. Good luck with the competition. It's on our homepage on YouTube. Thanks for listening. Thank you for watching.